Good evening to all. At the outset, I offer the sympathies and condolences of the entire DFA family to Madame Gretchen del Rosario, Buddy, Hans, Inge, Meg, and Steffi, and the brothers and sisters of Secretary Albert del Rosario. I cannot speak enough of the sadness of the DFA family on the passing of the former secretary, but also the honor and pride in our remembrance of his time as Secretary of Foreign Affairs from 2011 to 2016. I last met Secretary del Rosario last October at a lunch I hosted in honor of my predecessors. It was 3 months into the assumption of this job. That lunch was quite important to me because as a new Foreign Secretary, I was embarking on a path that few had taken. The support and counsel of my predecessors held much meaning to me, for each Foreign Secretary in the past and the future serves in a continuum, moving in rhythm with the journey of our nation. Albert del Rosario, or ADR as we called him, was at the helm of DFA during an important period in our history, one that had its share of demands for diplomacy that is deft as it is anchored, as nuanced as it is sharp and far-seeing. When ADR became Secretary of Foreign Affairs, he brought with him his outstanding accomplishments as a businessman and just prior as Ambassador of the Philippines to the United States. But ADR did not rest on these accomplishments. He applied himself to the rigors of the task upon him, learning its complex ropes with both the reverence of a wise man and the openness of youth. He said to those who worked with him often that at that point in his 70s, he had done and seen much and had nothing more to prove and gain. And to serve the Filipino nation was a profound honor that he accepted fully. This was evident to all. In the past days, we witnessed an outpouring of tributes on how he carried his duty from day one to the last, as Secretary of Foreign Affairs, with uncompromising commitment and solemn dignity. His was the kind of leadership that was most deeply conscious of the authority and responsibility attached to his position, at least of its trappings of power. His was a sense of duty that persevered through the exacting demands of his days and frailties of his body at that age. To the much younger people who barely kept up with ADR's schedule and drive, seeing him work long hours and flying across time zones around the world, despite his back pain, was an invitation to do more and aspire to give more of themselves. More by his example than words, ADR inspired the DFA personnel to reach beyond their grasp. ADR's moral clarity underpinned his courage and leadership. His integrity and principled service are so known such that when the Philippines was written about in those days by international observers as being a, quote, tough nut to crack, unquote, on its policy on the South China Sea, President Aquino, also a leader of principle, said, and I quote, Albert is the tough nut to crack, end quote. This clarity and decisiveness were touchstones to ADR's approach in addressing challenges, including to marshal Philippine responses to crises and disasters around the world, as when we had to repatriate our nationals from Japan following the tsunami, and Yemen and Libya, and deliver Filipino peacekeepers in Golan Heights to safety. If there's one thing that ADR brought to DFA that is remembered with fondness, this was his humanity and his kindness. He worked hands-on to see Filipino nurses safe from the fighting in Libya and a Filipino engineer rescued from his kidnappers in Yemen. He glowed upon meeting them at the end of their ordeal, with the content of a father seeing his children out of harm's way. Many in DFA speak of the old school grace that infused ADR's leadership. ADR's kindness and respect for others lent a touch of elegance to the conduct of diplomacy. He would humor colleagues at the legal office whenever they'd come to see him, saying, quote, "Oh no, the lawyers are here," while assuring them that he recognized that they kept his ideas within the bounds of public regulations, and him away from trouble. He offered a lift to colleagues of any rank waiting at the lobby. He graced the daycare center and tenderly indulged its thrilled members during a trick-or-treat. He kept an eye on the frontline consular services so that the face of the DFA met the expectations of the Filipino public. He valued the wisdom and experience of the career corps. He listened to us patiently through hours of briefings and debates. This camaraderie, trust, and faith meant so much to the department and its personnel. As a leader, ADR gave of himself generously and graciously. And the women and men of the department returned this by placing an equal trust in his leadership, by matching or trying to match his spirit of courage, by carrying the Republic through the tests and glories of Philippine diplomacy of that time with conviction and honest service. The DFA flourished under ADR's leadership. Public surveys those years put DFA at the top of the most trusted departments. Our delegations to meetings, our missions and posts buzzed and thrived on high morale, for our people knew that wherever they were, they stood and spoke and walked shoulder to shoulder with ADR, whose leadership called out to the best in themselves and embodied the dignity of the Filipino nation as the first Asian republic. Beyond ADR's term of office, the department continues to draw upon the legacies of ADR and the radiance of his courage. Let me conclude my remarks with a photo that speaks 1,000 words, that leaves no doubt on the profuse affection and respect that ADR enjoys in the department. This was taken during the DFA's farewell event for him in March 2016. This evening, a grateful department bids our farewell to our former Secretary Albert F. Del Rosario for one last time to his final journey home. Secretary Del Rosario, who is the toughest of tough nuts, the finest among gentlemen, a faithful sentinel of this republic, and most ardent servant of God in the Filipino nation. From your DFA family, thank you and farewell.